Hey everyone, it's Alan Shimel, DevOps.com, DevOps TV, and we're here at IBM Think 2018 in Las Vegas. I have a whole panel here today with me in this segment. Happy to be joined first of all by a return guest here for us at DevOps.com, James Hunter. James, welcome.
Thank you.
Good to have you back.
Good to be back.
You brought some friends?
I did, indeed. Yes.
Okay, well, we have Chris Haggan,
Hello.
far right, and Matt Tarnawsky.
Yes.
Fair enough?
Very good, thank you.
Okay, from HCL joining us. Welcome, gentlemen. Okay, so HCL's development partner along with IBM. And we're here to talk today. We were talking a little bit off camera. We want to talk about sort of two different paths for DevOps and testing and so forth that we see. And one is sort of the classic digital transformation, right? And we're hearing so many organizations, a majority of organizations, if they haven't already started, are contemplating their digital transformation, right? And then the second path, if you will, or pattern, maybe that's a better word, pattern, right? The second pattern involves more around preserving what you already have. Is that fair to say? So why don't you explain a little? So I gave us the 500,000 foot view, guys. Give us fill it in here for me.
Sure. So the way we've been talking about DevOps and looking at DevOps is how do we define DevOps? And we've really got it down to, we try to get down to 6 words.
Right. Yeah.
It's always tough, right? But we define it as the fast delivery of reliable software. We seem to fundamentally capture what we need to do with software, no matter what type it is, whether it's existing environment that we're updating and changing, whether it's new, mobile and updates and digital transformation as you rightly described. But what we've begun to notice, though, is that organizations were trying to achieve the value of DevOps to get that fast delivery of reliable software by getting better collaboration and then using more automation to try and to speed up and mitigate some of the risks around delivery. But then what we've noticed is that the number of options that projects have, the technology options they have, continue to increase just as fast as their ability to adopt techniques to achieve the value of DevOps. So the risk to business is actually continuing to increase as well, and we're looking for techniques to do that. So what we found is that the projects are really looking in these two types of groups, as you rightly say. One is around the transforming, who have a slightly different perspective of how to achieve that sort of approach, as opposed to those who are preserving what they have and building extra capabilities on top of the fundamental stuff. So with that in mind, there's lots of different types of how do we mitigate that level of risk? How do we assess that level of risk across all those technologies, which I think is absolutely key.
Gentlemen, what are you seeing?
So I think one of the things we're noticing as we talk to customers is, as you say, that split between, okay, I'm doing net new work, I'm building on top of assets that I've already got that I've been working with for a number of years, and maybe we're starting to expose that now through REST APIs or through other mechanisms of getting that out into the world. But fundamentally, the core platform is still staying the same. So the application, the systems of record, things like that, they're staying the same, but it's now how are we exposing that and enabling the digital transformation that we're thinking about. So things like mobile applications and things like layering on top of these APIs new capabilities. But as we were saying, there's also that idea of, well, we need to preserve those systems of record, those sort of data record layers where companies they've got a lot of investment. We're here at Think. There's a lot of mainframe conversations out there on the show floor. There's a lot of power conversations that are happening here. People have got significant investment in these platforms, and it's like, how do we take great advantage of that whilst also continuing to move the business forward?
Yeah, I think one of the good stories I heard today, just to talk about that more preservation angle of the DevOps story, is a customer trying to look at how they can apply DevOps to their mainframe systems, growing that sort of activity, and seeing that, okay, we don't really want to do all the practices that we had before, which were very manual on the mainframe, and looking at saying, well, hang on, if we have to do a full end-to-end test because it's a mainframe, let's automate it. let's put service virtualization around it so we can handle dependencies that shouldn't be there. And equally, that's a great tool for them to use when they are doing a transformation. The teams who are looking to do these new mobile projects or new digital projects on the cloud, they're still going to have dependencies on those systems of record. And of course, if they've got that dependency, they might not even want to have to worry about that in their test environments. So being able to virtualize those and remove them from that level of concern is really, really powerful for them.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen this, and so I'm doing DevOps.com now 4+ years, right? Gotten a chance to speak to many companies and organizations using mainframe, not using it. I mean, to me, probably the most extreme example of this was actually at an IBM Interconnect a couple of years ago. It was a large company that will remain nameless right now, but basically had about 100 years of legacy. I don't think the IT industry is 100 years old, but they hadn't updated, right? And then they decided to move to the cloud. And as part of that cloud transformation, DevOps was part of it, and digital transformation, the whole thing. But their mantra was in with the old, in with the new, out with the old, where they literally they weren't building a bridge, from the cloud from their legacy. They were just building new applications in the cloud, and as they turned this one on, they just shut this one off, like just cast it aside, dirt, garbage. And to me, I mean, though it sounded extreme, number one, but it also sounded a little asinine to me. Like, why would you have such an investment, and these things were working, granted, needed to be updated or whatever, but they missed that whole, they missed the whole concept of, building on this hybrid, have a transition. You want to get off mainframes? Okay, maybe you'll get off mainframes in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, whatever the time frame is, but you don't just literally throw the baby out with the bathwater. So I've seen that kind of extreme. And then, of course, we've all seen the other extreme, too, where, especially when we're talking with mainframes, yeah, I'd like to do end-to-end continuous testing. But we have 25 years of this is the way we do it here. And they, and don't fix what's not broke. So, there's that, too. And somewhere in the middle lies true change and transformation. Your job is to make that happen. It's mission impossible a little bit, right? But how do you recognize that? How do you know where to play it? Right, here are my two extremes. Obviously, extremism is never a good thing. But in that middle ground, where do you say, okay, let's build on what you have, versus, hey, maybe we need to do something new here, right? And build a bridge, let's call it. Examples?
Yeah, so from my perspective, the organizations that I've worked with who are looking to do some of those transformations, it comes down to the commonality across them all is the successful business, and how do they mitigate business risk?
Yep.
And then understanding where that risk comes from. And I think that's where some of it falls down. People that understand where the business risk is going to come from in those sort of situations. From a technical perspective, it's very easy to switch on and off and move and so on and lose that legacy. But that in itself constitutes new business risk.
Yeah.
There's more dependencies on API. There's more dependency on scalability, which may have been inherent within the existing platform before, was not necessarily much of an issue. So I certainly come across the problem with an organisation when they don't understand what is going to affect their business risk, which is what they need to take into account. I don't know what you guys have seen on this.
I think a bit of what you've talked about there is also though the culture side of things.
Yeah,
and some of that comes from people not necessarily seeing the value of some of the practices we talk about around test automation or service virtualization. And the guys who are saying, no, we can't do end-to-end continuous tests because we've just done it this way for 25 years. In some cases, it's worth just starting with them saying, okay, well, where can we maybe do a little bit of this just so you can see what value you can get from it? What pilots can we do? Just so you can start to win a few people over, rather than trying to transform everything at once, because that rarely works. But just win a few people over, get some small victories, and start to build on that.
I don't disagree with you.
Interestingly, I've seen a customer very similar to the one you were describing before. I was sat in a meeting with them, and they put out this phrase, which I love, and I keep coming back to from time to time, which was their architecture principle was based on fortune favors the bold.
Okay. Yes.
And they were
but not the asinine. But yeah.
yeah, okay. but their whole principle was, look, we're going to make some big changes. We're going to take on some big risk. What we need are, big tools that are going to help us to make those changes and be successful in doing that. And their goal, they knew that they were doing things, perhaps not the right way, but it was a case of, look, we're going to make some big bets and see where we end up. And it wasn't. I mean, don't get me wrong. They weren't turning off the old stuff until they were confident in the new stuff. But they were doing some significant migrations away from technologies that they had previously, and they're saying, well, let's look at the technology map and understand how can we do this in an effective and efficient fashion. Right. And we can guide customers down that road.
Sure. So, as I've gotten older, what I used to think was crazy is not so crazy. And there's reasons why things are the way they are a lot of times. What I have found is that though, every organization has tribal knowledge, right? There's technical debt, there's tribal knowledge, there's all these kind of stakeholders, if you will. And a lot of times, though, over time, an organization may do a thing a certain way, to the point where people may forget. This is true of civilization as well, right? You may forget why we do it, but at one time there was a reason why we did it, right? And now someone comes in and says, "Oh, we just do that because that was the way we were doing it. There was really no reason," and we do it. And so they change it, and then they find out why it was that way. I think when we start talking about mainframes and we start talking about legacy systems, a lot of times there are those gotchas, and it does become a question of managing risk, right? The word, and when you go into risk management and everything, the hardest thing is not knowing what you know. It's not knowing what you don't know, right? And that's it right there. That's the nitty gritty of it. We don't know what we don't know when we go to change things that we've been working on. So yes, the fortune favors the bold. But I, as I've gotten older, and maybe that's normal, right? I tend to be a little bit more conservative in terms of how quick I want to change. What is my pace of transformation? And what I suspect is, though you see these two fact patterns right now as to why you're, being engaged, I think over time they merge, right? That it's a transformation. It's a rare greenfield, right, situation. Yeah. Yeah. Rare. It's a transformation and a management of risk with the idea, but no one wants to change for change's sake, right? There's got to be, along with the risk, the reward. And what is the reward, right? And can you tangibly put your finger on what that reward is? And don't tell me it's just, you're going to release more often. No. How much more often? What is that going to mean, right? I think that was also one of the problems behind Agile and DevOps is you're going to release more often. They used to release once a quarter. Now you release once a day. Fantastic. God bless you. But what has it meant to your business? Has it made you more profitable? Has it made you more responsive? Are your customers happier? Right? What is the real reward in just doing something for something's sake? And I think that we still need to quantify. And James, you guys should be doing that at IBM, I imagine, right?
We certainly are, yeah. So we've done a study with some a whole load of customers, and we talked to them about this concept around DevOps and speed and reliable software. But the question we asked them, and it's been a question that's been asked for a long time as well, which aligns that, is what's more important, speed or quality or cost? There are three, right?
Right, there's always three.
But if we talk about the speed and quality particularly, because cost has other parameters around it, nearly every customer says, well, nearly every project, not all of them, says quality is more important than speed. On that point, as you say, it's not just about delivering stuff. You've got to deliver stuff that's reliable, that works. because the ultimate goal at the end of it is the sustainability of the business.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
And
we're going to be out
improving
of
the
business.
business, exactly.
Yes.
See, but to me, that was always the premise of what made DevOps attractive, is you don't sacrifice quality for speed. In fact, you get speed with quality, or you get quality with speed,
Right.
right? And security as a thrown in too. That's, two out, like the song says, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. But and that's nirvana, right? That we shoot for. Doesn't always work that way. But anyway, guys, fascinating discussion. We've probably gone way over our time here, but whatever. It was a great discussion. Love to hear more about what HCL is doing. Where can people find out more, by the way, if they're interested?
So we do have a testing community website. It is testworkbenchcommunity.com.
Say that slower.
Sorry, testworkbenchcommunity.com.
There's a hyphen in there between workbench and community.
That would be important. That would be important.
Very good.
Managing the risk. Test
Workbench
community.com.
Yeah.
Got it. All right, we can find out more there. And of course, James, where can we find out more about what IBM's doing there?
Well, IBM has a big site called DevWorks. On there, look for continuous testing and the information, the guidance. There's a lot of information on there.
Fantastic. Hey, this is Alan Shimel for DevOps.com, DevOps TV, here at IBM Think 2018. Have a great day.